Box FM with
Hey guys, welcome back to Horror Box FM. Tonight, I have a story that will make your blood run cold and leave you shivering in the dark. Turn off the lights, plug in your earphones, and let's dive into the nightmare. The rain was pouring in relentless sheets, drumming a hypnotic, terrifying rhythm against my windshield. It was 2:15 a.m. on a forgotten stretch of Route 9, a highway surrounded by nothing but miles of dense, suffocating pine forests. My dashboard lights flickered weakly, casting an eerie glow over the fuel gauge, which had just dropped completely below empty. The engine gave an ominous, violent sputter, warning me that I had minutes before being stranded in total darkness. Panic settled deep into my chest, making it hard to breathe as I stared into the blackness ahead. The fog was so thick it seemed alive, swirling violently in the beams of my headlights like grasping hands. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, praying for a miracle. Suddenly, a dull, sickly yellow glow pierced through the curtain of mist just a few hundred yards ahead. As I drew closer, the rusted, skeletal frame of an old service station emerged from the darkness. A buzzing neon sign hung crookedly from a metal pole, its broken letters sparking as they faintly spelled out the word gas. Relief washed over me, though an uneasy chill immediately followed it. The architecture of the station looked incredibly ancient, resembling a forgotten relic from the 1950s, covered in layers of grime and dark, vine-like weeds. There were no modern digital screens on the pumps, just mechanical rolling numbers covered in cracked glass. The entire place was cloaked in a heavy, unnatural silence that seemed to swallow the sound of the raging storm outside. I pulled my sputtering car up to the lone pump, the tires crunching loudly over shattered glass and gravel. I put the car in park but left the engine running, terrified that if I turned it off, it would never start again. I honked the horn twice, the sharp sound echoing hollowly off the metal canopy above me. For a long, agonizing minute, nothing happened, and the silence returned, heavier than before. Then, with a slow, agonizing screech, the rusted screen door of the main cabin began to swing open. A tall, thin figure stepped out of the shadows and onto the oil-stained concrete. He wore a faded, oil-stained mechanic's jumpsuit that looked decades old. As he walked closer into the dim perimeter light, a knot of pure dread tightened in my stomach. His movements were deeply wrong, stiff, jerky, and mechanical, like a puppet being pulled by invisible strings. His head was tilted at an unnatural, awkward angle, resting almost completely on his left shoulder. But it was his face that made my blood freeze instantly in my veins. His skin was a sickening, translucent shade of ash gray, stretched impossibly tight over his skull. Most terrifying of all, his eyes were completely devoid of color, just two hollow, pitch-black voids staring blankly into nothingness. He did not look at me, nor did he acknowledge my presence. He simply walked to the back of my car. I watched him through the rearview mirror, my heart hammering violently against my ribs like a trapped bird. He grabbed the heavy fuel nozzle with a hand that looked like skeletal leather, his fingernails long, cracked, and caked with black dirt. He jammed the nozzle into my car's tank, and the ancient pump began to groan and vibrate violently. The mechanical numbers on the pump started rolling backward, clicking loudly in the dead night air. I rolled my window down just an inch to hand him his payment, wanting nothing more than to escape this nightmare. The moment the window cracked open, a wave of intense, putrid air rushed into the vehicle. It was the unmistakable, overpowering stench of rotting flesh and stagnant, ancient decay. The smell was so foul it made my eyes water, and I had to fight the sudden, violent urge to vomit. I reached my trembling hand out of the small gap, clutching a crumpled $50 bill. "Keep the change," I choked out, my voice cracking with pure, unadulterated terror. The attendant slowly glided over to the driver's side window, his footsteps making absolutely no sound on the wet concrete. He extended his arm, and his ice-cold fingers pressed against my bare palm to take the money. The touch felt like a jagged piece of dry ice, sending a jolt of agonizing, paralyzing cold straight up my arm and into my spine. As his hand retracted, I noticed with horror that his fingers left behind a thick, greasy trail of black, foul-smelling slime on my skin. He slowly raised his head, and for the very first time, those empty, pitch-black eyes locked directly onto mine. His jaw suddenly dropped open far wider than any human jaw should ever be able to stretch. A low, wet, gurgling hiss escaped from his throat, a sound that echoed inside my head rather than through the air. In the reflection of his black eyes, I didn't see myself. I saw a vision of a horrific car crash, flames, and screaming faces. Instinct took over, wiping out every logical thought in my brain. I slammed my foot down on the gas pedal with all my might, not even waiting for him to remove the fuel nozzle. The tires shrieked in protest, burning rubber as the car launched forward into the blinding rain. Behind me, I heard a loud, metallic snap as the fuel hose ripped away from the ancient pump. I glanced up at the rearview mirror, panting heavily, expecting to see a furious monster chasing after my speeding vehicle. What I saw instead made a cold sweat break out all over my body, drenching my clothes in seconds. There was absolutely nothing behind me. The bright neon sign, the glowing pumps, the concrete station, and the tall mechanic had completely vanished into thin air. There was only the pitch-black highway, surrounded by the towering, indifferent pine trees. I drove frantically like a madman for the next 2 hours, refusing to slow down, refusing to look back, screaming at the top of my lungs just to keep from fainting. When the first pale light of dawn finally broke through the clouds, I pulled into a brightly lit, crowded city gas station. Shivering violently and sobbing with relief, I stepped out of my car to inspect the damage from the ripped hose. My breath caught in my throat, and my knees buckled, sending me crashing hard onto the pavement. The fuel cap was completely gone, and the entire back of my car was heavily scorched with old soot and covered in clinging, green cemetery moss. I looked down at my right hand, the hand that had touched the creature, and let out a blood-curdling scream that echoed across the station. My palm was severely blistered and blackened with frostbite, and embedded deep into my skin were pieces of old, decayed human bone.
Horrorbox FM with fear.